Raymond Huero Shryock hails from Artesia, California, and has been a made member of the Mexican Mafia since the early 1970s. In 1997, at the age of 45, he would be found guilty of multiple RICO charges, including 7 murders, along with a dozen or other so very infamous Mexican Mafia members. Since then, he has been housed at supermaxes across the United States in the federal BOP. Today, he is currently locked up in the very famous Florence ADX Supermax prison in Colorado and is considered the head of the federal faction of the Mexican Mafia.
A secret. The police say they're very real and their lifeblood is murder and drugs. Tonight on his exclusive report, Joe Rico takes us inside the Mexican Mafia. Joe?
Well, Paul, they have 300 to 400 members in prison, and you double that on the outside. They have a long, violent, bloody history, and the fact that people are starting to turn up dead suddenly could serve as a wake-up call that the Mexican Mafia, or La M, is no myth, but instead a cold-blooded reality. Born in prison to survive, they thrive on the streets of L.A. to kill. Now, we warn you, there are some graphic scenes you might find objectionable.
Everybody fears us. All the prison gangs, they control the inside, all the criminal activity. Anybody that shows weakness is executed without exception.
They are the gang of gangs. Vicious, calculating, fearless. To get in, you spill blood, and to leave, the blood could be yours. This is life in La M, or the Mexican Mafia. It began here at the Dual Vocational Institution in Northern California, about 70 miles east of San Francisco. Then it was a prison for some of the toughest and deadliest of young offenders in the state. 1957 it was. Luis Huero Flores, a gang member from Hawaiian Gardens, first introduced the idea of uniting all barrio gang members who were in prison. Their immediate plan: protection, intimidation, and control of other weaker inmates. One-time eMe hitman Ramon Mundo Mendoza was 21 years old when he joined the gang in prison. Years later, he defected and currently is in hiding.
The whole idea, the attraction to all the members that were inducted at that time were to simply improve their comfort zone while in prison. Clean sets of clothing, the best pair of shoes, what have you. Drugs, control of the drugs, control of the inmate prostitution.
As the eMe evolved and spread to other prisons, there arose other prison gangs to rival them. The Black Guerrilla Family, the Aryan Brotherhood, and eMe's bitter rival, the Nuestra Familia, another Latino gang rooted in Central and Northern California. Still outside of prison, La M was unknown, but anonymity soon ended with a chain of high-profile murders. 1976, this woman, Ellen Delia, threatened to disclose that La M had infiltrated a federally funded prison inmate program. In response, La M sends Alfie Sosa and this man, a former hitman, also in hiding, to greet her at Sacramento Airport. She had a surprise for her.
Correct. What was it? Oh, we left off and killed.
And you guys killed her there.
Right.
Then there was the murders of 2 rival gang members in Bakersfield. The scandal over a Fresno judge allegedly in the pocket of La M. In Los Angeles, businessman Robert Mrazek is shot to death by a 17-year-old on orders from reputed Mexican Mafia Godfather Joe Morgan. Morgan is convicted of murder and is serving a life sentence. Today, La M's influence is well-rooted in the streets of Los Angeles. There's the so-called no more drive-by edict. The Mexican Mafia orders the indiscriminate drive-bys to stop, or else. Police gang experts say this edict is for real.
Most of the people would believe, well, gee, that's great. They don't want to. The Mexican Mafia is actually taking care of their people. They're making sure the drive-by doesn't happen. Not at all. Once they do this, they are getting a toehold in the communities, in the barrios. And once that happens, they're going to start pushing the Mexican Mafia criminal activity, which is extortion and drugs in the barrios. All the street violence and the drive-bys that they've put out their edict on to stop. I mean, that's something we couldn't do as law enforcement. But now they're able to do it, being locked up in prison.
Now investigators say at least 10 gang members have been murdered since that edict went out earlier this year. Now tomorrow night, he was among the deadliest of eMe hitmen. Now they want him dead. Using a hidden camera, Channel 4 News follows him as armed guards lead him to safety.
That I saw was a potential hitman or hit person.
Again, that's tomorrow night at 5 o'clock on Dial eMe for Murder. Paul.
They are the gang of all gangs. They came together in prison. They came together to protect, intimidate, control, and kill. Cold-blooded executioners who become more powerful every day. Now, for the first time, hear from the most dangerous hitman of them all and go inside the Mexican Mafia. Today at 5, only on the Channel 4 News.
At an airport, a man risked death by coming back to testify.
The face that I saw to me was a potential hitman.
A Mexican Mafia hitman changes his allegiance. An exclusive interview at 5 tonight. And Princess Diana shuts up the critics.
Live in Southern California, this is Channel 4 News at 5:30.
The Mexican Mafia. From a prisoner to a gang hitman, a marked man tells all.
Recruited in 1971 at San Quentin. I was an aspiring Mexican Mafia member.
A Channel 4 News exclusive coming up.
Spread. Coming up inside California's most dangerous, most violent gang, you will see it all through the eyes of a gang hitman who kept a scrapbook of his hits. That's next.
Also at 6, we will show you
The Mexican Mafia, they are tough guys. They are bent on crime. Police say their lifeblood is murder and drugs. Tonight, we introduce you to a man who was one of the brothers. He was one of them. A hitman who murdered for the Mexican Mafia, but now he is testifying against them. Tonight, Joe RICO has this special report. Joe?
Well, Paul, for years, Ramon Mundo Mendoza was among the deadliest and loyal of Mexican Mafia soldiers. He was brilliant yet vicious, traits that got him on the inside. Then one day he had enough and became a born-again Christian and turned against La Emet. And very quickly, he went from #1 hitman to #1 on the MS hit list. Last week, he came out of hiding, a new life, a new look. He allowed Channel 4 News to follow him using a hidden camera as he traveled to San Francisco to testify once again against the Latino mob, who many believe were ready to kill him when he came to town.
I've got a guy in the car downstairs now. He's watching our car. How about the
Former Mexican Mafia hitman Ramon Mundo Mendoza was secretly rushed through San Francisco International Airport last week under heavy security, brought out of hiding to testify against his former brothers in La M. For years, they've tried to find and kill him. They've come close, twice. He prayed there wouldn't be a third.
Every face that I saw to me was a potential hitman or hit person, and I found myself scrutinizing everybody. Why don't you get the middle here? We're going to go downstairs. Why don't you just stay behind us? I'll kind of block it so they won't be able to see you.
Mendoza was a one-time member of La M's inner circle, a man the Mexican Mafia Godfather once considered like a son. But Mendoza wanted out, and the only way out was death. He instead chose survival and ran and hid, and is now writing a book on the Mexican Mafia called From Altar Boy to Hitman.
I was recruited in 1971 at San Quentin. I was an aspiring Mexican Mafia member. I wanted to be part of their madness.
When he called it quits and defected, Mendoza had killed at least 20 people for La M. Some say a lot more, but it was all strictly business. He even kept a scrapbook. His last job as an MS soldier was in Signal Hill, November 1977. Helen Mrazek, a bail bondswoman who did business with the Mexican Mafia, wanted her husband, Robert, killed. She offered reputed Mexican Mafia Godfather Joe Morgan $10,000 and a kilo of heroin as partial payment.
Joe contacted me and had me coordinate the execution and suggested that I use a game youngster.
That game youngster was 17-year-old gang member Artie Guzman from East Los Angeles. He was an up-and-comer who was eager to please La M, and did so, shooting Mrazek in the head, killing him. In street gang lingo, Guzman made his bones, his reputation.
He got the glory. He was also made a member of the Mexican Mafia when he went on to do his time, his sentence in Folsom Prison.
Mendoza was also arrested, but having his fill with the MM, he turned and testified against Morgan. The Godfather got a life sentence, Mendoza a new identity, and with the help of witness protection, he left California. Now, 13 years later, he was back in the spotlight. Government attorneys knew bringing him back was a deadly risk.
There's always a danger that information would get out accidentally, and we would be concerned about people learning of his whereabouts and coming to try to find him.
If we don't run into an adversary or into a bullet, that doesn't mean they didn't have somebody waiting somewhere. It's just that they don't know which way we're coming from.
His testimony went without a hitch, though it is believed M.A. had spotters in court. But Mendoza says it doesn't matter anymore. He's through with any involvement with his past. This was his last call. You disappear again.
I go back home, and I just resume my life anonymously, It's been 22 years since I joined the Mexican Mafia in San Quentin, and it seems like an eternity. I'm happy where I'm at, and I don't want to ever again return to my previous lifestyle.
And if you're heading southbound on Highway 880, the Nimitz Freeway through Oakland.
Now the double life has been difficult. No family ties, having to make up stories about the past, can't even take off his shirt without revealing tattoos, then having to explain. He has a 9-to-5 job, and he says he misses his Los Angeles Dodgers. And yes, he says he has tremendous remorse for what he has done. Tomorrow night, we conclude with the man who calls the shots, the Mexican Mafia Godfather, Joe Morgan. His deadly likeness is portrayed in the controversial movie American Me. People died behind the making of that film, and many say the real Godfather called the fatal shots. That's tomorrow night right here on Channel 4 at 5 o'clock. Back to you.
All right, Joe, very interesting story. Coming up next here are the troubled times for superstar Michael Jackson, his latest family tragedy.
Coming next with a weekend AccuWeather forecast.
And when our news continues here at 5:30, dangerous stunts on movie sets. We'll show you how Hollywood is cleaning up its act after yet another accident.
And a former hitman for the Mexican Mafia talks about the violence surrounding a hit movie.
Maybe too much.
Our special report, Inside the Mexican Mafia.
And the Mexican Mafia, the gang at the top. Members of other LA gangs dream about being members someday. Their lifeblood is murder and drugs. Tonight in his special report, Joe RICO takes us inside. We'll look at the man at the top, the Godfather. Joe?
Well, Colleen, since it was formed behind California prison walls in the late 1950s, the Mexican Mafia, or La eMe, has about 800 members and associates today, both in and out of prison. It has been a violent, bloody history, and tonight we take a look at the man they call the Godfather, the man calling the shots, 63-year-old Joe Morgan, currently serving a life sentence for murder.
Joe Morgan is an enigma. Half of him is one of the cruelest, coldest son of a bitches you'll ever know. The other half of him is one of the funniest, compassionate, well-liked people.
Joe Morgan is the most influential member of the Mexican Mafia today, the Godfather. Yet the man whom authorities believe has been involved in more than 100 murders is not Mexican. He's white, a Slavic who grew up in San Pedro and East LA and absorbed the culture, the language, and the violent underbelly of their mean streets, the gangs.
As far as Mexican Mafia members are concerned, Joe's Mexican because his heart is Mexican. So we don't look at him by the color of his skin. Well, he was born and raised in the barrios, in the neighborhoods. So by hanging around with the guys from the neighborhood, he thought like them, he spoke like them, he speaks extremely fluent Spanish. And as far as he's concerned, he's Chicano. And if you told him otherwise to his face, especially if you told it to him in a negative way, he'd kill you.
Morgan did killed early in life. 1946, as a 16-year-old, he bludgeoned the husband of his 32-year-old lover, Elvira Duran Rojo, and dumped the body in a rural canyon. It was a sensational case that gave the local press its fill of tabloid headlines. It also introduced Joe Morgan to a place he'd call home for most of his adult life, state prison, where he was sent at the age of 16. And it was here that Morgan helped mold a newer, deadlier wave of Mexican Mafia soldier, a group now requiring the death oath and a pledge of silence. In little time, La eMe had become the most feared of all prison gangs. It was an army that pushed its members to be the worst that they could be. But Morgan was also shrewd and had big plans. Drugs. He had access to the largest heroin and cocaine supplier in Mexico. He also had ties with the Cosa Nostra. But in the 1970s, he out-finessed the Italian mob and gained control of the LA heroin market. Former eMe member Ramon Mundo Mendoza was Morgan's right-hand man who helped engineer the Mexican Mafia's rise beyond the prison walls, a plan that was chronicled in the 1992 film American Me, starring Edward James Olmos.
The choices we made to survive got Mundo, JD, and me 10 to 25.
I was played by the role of Pepe Serna. I was the character was Mundo, which was my nickname when I was a Mexican Mafia member. William Forsythe played the role of Joe Morgan, who in the movie was JD. And Cheyenne Cadena was played by Edward James Olmos, which in the movie was a character called Santana.
But sources say the film offended many members of the Mexican Mafia, especially Joe Morgan. It was believed that even behind the maximum security walls of Pelican Bay Prison near the Oregon border, Morgan gave the go-ahead to have 3 technical advisors to the film killed. Whatever plans the Mexican Mafia has for the future, it will be without the Godfather. Channel 4 News has learned that Joe Morgan is terminally ill. He is currently here at Corcoran Prison, south of Fresno, undergoing tests for a growth in his liver. Doctors give him 12 weeks to live. Ever since he began serving his life sentence for murder, Joe Morgan has maintained his silence, even refusing to acknowledge whether or not the Mexican Mafia even exists. Said one former member of the Mexican Mafia inner circle, Joe Morgan isn't the type for dramatic deathbed confessions or conversions. In his own warped sense of value, he's been a good soldier till the end.
He's a hope-to-die soldier, and he chose to continue that road, and it looks like he's taken it to his grave.
Morgan is now seeking mercy, asking for a compassionate release to be with his family. Prison officials say, considering his clout, even in ill health, that release appears very unlikely. Paul, Colleen.
All right, Joe Rico, thank you very much.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Hope y'all having a blessed day. Hope you had a good weekend. Really quick, before I jump into the video, if you could, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Without further ado, let's just jump right into this here. We're going to be talking about a very, very famous white boy within the Mexican Mafia, and that's Raymond Huero Shy Shryock. And apparently his name was correctly pronounced Shryock, but they just stuck with Shryock. I want to make that clear. It's kind of a little bit of a tongue twister there. Make sure I say that right. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Another interesting piece of information I came across was that he was originally born in Olaf, Kansas, and then came to California at a very, very young age. From Artesia, became a member of Arta 13, which is under the control of the Mexican Mafia. Another little side note here, a couple little quick funny facts, not funny facts, just different facts that people might not know. It's mistakenly believed that he was portrayed in the very famous movie American Me about the Mexican Mafia by Danny Harrow as Huero in that movie. No. Even though the character kind of resembles Huero Shy, it's actually portraying another infamous Mexican Mafia member by the name of Huero Buff, right? Who deserves a whole another video of his own. And again, he's a white boy. And I just think it's interesting that there was only a couple, white guys that really made it into the Mexican Mafia. And I feel like him and Joe Morgan, Peg-Leg Morgan, some consider the godfather of eMe, they rose to, the height of heights. Now, before we go any further, I want to give a shout out to a really good channel by the name of PFP, Police and Fire Publishing page, where an ex-Mexican Mafia member by the name of Mundo did a really good video on Huero Shy. And there's a few bits of information that I took from his video watching it. I just want to make sure he gets enough credit, okay, or gets the credit. So he talks about how Huero Shy began getting into trouble at an early age, did serious time in the California Youth Authority, entered the system at the age of 19, went to Tracy Duell Vocational Institution, and was a young gun, man, raising hell, doing his thing, making a name for himself, and proved himself. 1971, he becomes only the second white individual to be made by the Mexican Mafia. Was sponsored by a well-known figure by the name of Richie Ruiz. And it's said that during this time when he was made, that him, along with other gang members who were also made, it was like the largest group of young guys to be made all at once. So it kind of was like the next generation of eMe was made right here in 1971 inside of Tracy. By 1973, he's transferred to San Quentin, where they call a cleansing begins, like a mop-up effort of rivals and their associates. When I say rivals, I mean of the NF, the Nuestra Familia. Okay, they started purging them, getting rid of them. The NF and eMe were making their strongholds in California. And don't get me wrong, NF members did the exact same thing to Mexican Mafia members and their associates in the prisons that they controlled. And it was on to talk about how Huero Shy would get a parole in the mid-70s. However, on February 11th, 1977, Raymond Huero Shy Shryock and a guy by the name of Alfie Sosa, who the small amount of research I did on him, I will do a video on him after reading what I did about him. They considered him like a homicidal maniac. We are going to do a video on him. They murdered a fellow eMe member by the name of Bruno Chavez, who basically, because of politics, had a falling out with the Mexican Mafia and really didn't even know about it. And our guy Huero Shy and Alfie Sosa did it prison style and stabbed him to death in a park in Los Angeles. I just want to make sure that's information that I got off of that page, the Police and Fire Publishing page. They do a great job. They do awesome videos. Go check that out. Okay, now we're going to be talking about more of the federal side of things, because that's where Raymond Huero Shy Shryock is he's housed, right? Shryock is housed. He's in federal, the BOP. So this is another bit that I found. I'm going to just read across this really quick, and then we're going to be getting into the very infamous RICO case that he was involved in the 90s. Raymond Huero Shy Shryock from Artesia, California, member of the Mexican Mafia prison gang since the early 70s. Found guilty in 1997 of racketeering, conspiracy, and other charges, including 7 murders in a major federal case against the organization. Currently serving a life sentence in federal prison, he was one of 13 defendants in that high-profile 8-month federal trial in 1997, where prosecutors used extensive secret audio and video recordings to build their case. Testimony and evidence presented in his trial highlighted his involvement in ordering and planning violent acts. For example, he was heard on tape saying a street gang in Chino, I put there up, the Chino Sinners, has to pay the price after he was shot at, which resulted in the deaths of 2 rival gang members. He was also linked to a case where shooters, seeking to impress the Mexican Mafia, killed a woman and her 2 young children, an act that reportedly led to the murder of, quote, the baby killer within the prison system by other Mexican Mafia members. Imagine being that poor guy, right? You go do a hit, you think, for the Mexican Mafia, you accidentally kill a child, and then when you go to prison, the same people that told you to go kill these people go, man, you messed up, and they do you in right then and there. So I read through the RICO convictions that Huero Shy is wrapped up in, and his part basically reads like this. He gets convicted after this 8-month trial. Murder of Albert Orozco and attempted murders of Hector Galvez and Freddy Garcia. Albert Orozco, Hector Galvez, and Freddy Garcia were members of the Chino Sinners street gang. Remember how they talked about him being shot at by Chino gang members? This is it. On March 13, 1994, an unidentified assailant shot Garcia in the leg. A day later, on March 14, 1994, Larry Hernandez shot Galvez and Orozco multiple times. Galvez survived, but Albert Orozco died. During a recorded conversation on March 21st, so 7 days later, 1994, Shryock told E. Castro, quote, I sent them dudes to kill Orozco and Galvez. They got off. And Freddy Garcia got shot in the leg. Some dude named Larry did it. Shryock further stated that because Galvez, Garcia, and Orozco were, quote, putting guns on little kids' heads and hitting old women to, quote, take their money, he spoke to the alleged victims and told them, look, man, don't give them no fucking money no more. And the next time you see him, if you want to go ahead and kill them, so that's what they did. The next time he came to collect from somebody, he blew him away. They killed Orozco and Galvez. And so Garcia is the only one that's loose. Shryock made similar statements at the videotape on a videotape on March 27, 1994 in a meeting. This version of the events was supported by E. Castro's discussion of the incident with Pat Gutierrez, who told him that a guy named Larry killed Orozco and shot Galvez because Larry was tired of being taxed. You see this a lot with these Mexican Mafia cases I cover. This tax that they put on gang members, drug dealers, even just regular business owners. Most pay, but the ones that don't die, or at least attempts are made on their lives. But what I don't know if the Mexican Mafia doesn't realize is, when I've covered so many of these guys, is the fallout from shooting the very small handful of people who fight back on the tax is so much greater than, maybe doing it a little more discreetly or some other way to handle a person who they believe is stepping out of line. But then again, they wouldn't have the rep they had if they didn't take things all the way over the slightest bit of disrespect. I don't know. The indictment charged the conspiracy and murder of Orozco, conspiracy and attempted murder of Galvez, and conspiracy and attempted murder of Garcia as racketeering acts. The jury found the crimes proven as to Shryock and also convicted Shryock of Orozco's murder to maintain or increase his position in a RICO enterprise, assault on Galvez to maintain or increase his position, and assault on Garcia to also maintain or increase his position in that RICO enterprise. At a videotape from March 27, 1994 meeting, Shryock, Barella, and other Mexican Mafia members discussed killing Mexican Mafia member Jesse Sleepy Aragon. The members at the meeting decided to kill Aragon because he failed to carry out his assignment to kill a witness against another Mexican Mafia member, and he questioned the decision to kill Mexican Mafia member Philip Gibby Escobar. At the videotape Again, from March 30th, 1994 meeting, the members present assigned Escobar to kill Aragon, and Shryock offered to provide a weapon. On April 5th, 1994, Escobar met with Art Aguilar, a Shryock associate who provided Escobar with a gun. Law enforcement arrested Aragon, however, before he could be killed. The indictment charged a conspiracy to murder Aragon as a racketeering act, and the jury found the crime proven as to Barella and Shryock. The jury also convicted Barella and Shryock of conspiracy to murder Aragon to maintain or increase, once again, the position in the RICO. As videotaped on March 27th and 30th, 1994 meetings, Barella, R. Castro, Moreno, Shryock, Thurian, and other Mexican Mafia members discussed killing Francisco Puppet Martinez, who I just did a video on. Very, very powerful individual. I put his picture up there. A Mexican Mafia member incarcerated at Pelican Bay State Prison. These conspirators decided to kill Martinez because he was politicking against other members, threatening to kill other members, claimed to have made an individual member without following the proper procedure, and for generally causing dissension within the organization. Basically, they didn't like him. And the guy was stepping out of line, and Francisco Puppet Martinez became a headache and was basically doing whatever he wanted to do. And these guys said, yeah, you can't keep doing that. Accordingly, the conspirators devised a plan to invite Martinez to a meeting as a pretext and kill him. Law enforcement, however, arrested Martinez before he could be killed. The indictment charged a conspiracy to murder Martinez as a racketeering act, and the jury also found that crime was proven as to Barella, R. Castro, Moreno, Shryock, and Thurian. Between October and December of 94, government agents intercepted telephone calls in which R. Castro and J. Hernandez plotted to kill Danilo Garcia, an inmate at the L.A. County Jail. Law enforcement placed Garcia in protective custody, thwarting any attempts to kill him. The indictment charged a conspiracy to murder Garcia as a racketeering act, and the jury found the crime proven as to R. Castro and Hernandez. That's crazy. And finally, as videotaped, September of 94, Arias, Barrea, Mendez, Thurian, and Shryock reaffirmed an earlier decision to kill Mexican Mafia member Donald Littleman Ortiz because Ortiz had disrespected the Mexican Mafia. That's crazy, man. Okay, so he gets found guilty and sentenced to life on September 3rd, 1997 at the age of 45. And on that particular day, he was sentenced with two other high-ranking Mexican Mafia members, Benjamin Topo Peters, who was 56 at the time, and Ruben Nidal Castro, who was 36. So Shryock was 45 back in 97. Right? He's basically an old man now. I did come across a compassionate release filing that he did back in October of 2021. The circumstances he gave were poor health, family circumstances, rehabilitative efforts, the conditions at his facility, and the length of time he has served. He argues that the court failed to consider or give insufficient weight to these mitigating circumstances. And basically the court said, yeah, we did, but no, you're not getting out. And then came across this. The rumor is, as of right now, he is the leader in the feds. And not that long ago, he was transferred to the very infamous Florence ADX in Colorado, the Supermax. He's in there with all the big gang leaders. He's in there with El Chapo. He's in there with all the terrorists. So he is on lockdown. And basically they were saying that there were 3 medals of the Federal Commission for the Mexican Mafia. One died in 2018. One was released in December of 2018, and the other was released in 2020. Huero Shy, being a made man of the Mexican Mafia since the 70s, is now considered the top dog in the feds. Apparently he'd come from Victorville, United States Penitentiary, but now he's in ADX. So we'll see, man. If any other information comes out, I'll definitely follow up. Crazy life. Don't know how many times he got out. I don't think he ever did get out again after the murder he committed in the 70s after being paroled when they killed Bruno. But regardless, that is spending a huge part of your life locked up. So he was in the CIA from his teens. That's a life of just complete lockdown. I mean, you talk about being institutionalized. You've given your whole life to something. So it is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Until next time, peace.